Hey everyone, it's sKai from sKai Gaming here, coming at you with a 2-hour game review. Footage feature here is from my blind playthrough, just up to the 2-hour mark of gameplay. That way if we're having any issues with the game, or if it's simply not fun, we're still able to return it, as long as we play it less than 2 hours, thanks to our local Steam store policy. Today we're playing Bendy and the Ink Machine, a first-person action puzzle game with a unique art style that drops you right into a classic 1930s-style cartoon environment where you'll explore as you uncover the horrible secrets of an animation studio. When I go into these reviews, I try to go into them as blind as possible, and I'll admit, I didn't really know what I was getting into when I loaded this game up. Oh my god! Our driving plot point is that we're an animator named Henry, and we've been invited to visit a studio that we worked at many years ago. So, being the lonely, middle-aged man that Henry is, he jumps at the chance to visit someone that he hasn't spoken to in 30 years, especially one who still refers to him as his best pal. And we're being kidnapped. Great. Turns out that someone at the animation studio loved Bendy so much that they decided to perform a dark ritual to bring the character to life. Except it unfortunately backfires, and now Bendy wants to kill everything. When we first started exploring the map, I felt a bit on edge. At first it was because I knew the game's genre was horror, but the lighting and sound, or lack of it at times, really helped the game maintain an ominous tone at first. Which does tie in nicely for the voice acting for Henry and other characters or recordings that you might stumble across later in the game. Now, while the soundscape did well for keeping up the appearances that this is a horror game, I didn't really know how that fear would show itself. Right now the game was giving off more of a vibe that it was a puzzle exploration game, with the puzzles themselves not being anywhere near difficult. Later puzzles do get more difficult over time, but they often require backtracking to nearby areas you were just in, picking up items or interacting with objects that you just couldn't with previously. Nothing really comes off as frightening. There may be portions where things look like they're pulled from nightmares, but then you're pulled right back into something lighthearted and it completely resets the mood. Okay, I can interact with that. Why did that startle me? So while there may be creepy moments, it felt like there was little story development for making you feel immersed enough to want to escape, rather than that just being the overlying objective. Good. The gameplay controls were pretty basic and didn't do anything to complicate the game, but I still felt like there was plenty of time where I was wandering around, spamming my pickup button to try to interact with any objects, just hoping that it would further my current objective. Thankfully, the game has a setting where it shows tips that align with your current mission, which I admit I did use, but now I wonder how far I would have even progressed if I didn't use it, since it already felt like I was lost at times even with it on. If this game is intended at being a psychological horror game, then they completely missed it when it came to keeping us as the player feeling in a state of, oh my fucking god, that you would find with other horror games. Oh my god. Oh, what? Jeez. It was kind of refreshing to play a horror game that was postured a little bit more around a casual player, not for the hardcore horror enthusiast. Instances aren't going to be shock value, but more of tasteful jump scares, if there is such a thing. Where does the ink go? Eventually you'll get to equip objects or weapons that allow you to get to new areas of the map. Oh, what the hell is this? Okay, what the... Now, there were a few things that started to really bother me as I got further into the game, especially as the levels grew larger. Henry's movement speed, even while running, is incredibly slow. The fighting system is also kinda clunky, but that's to be expected for a game that's first and foremost a puzzle game, even if there's these action moments or instances where you're needing to take on stealth maneuvers. And did I mention the music is fantastic yet? The game does get to a point where you're— oh my god, Bendy is a ferocious ink demon, and he is unrelenting when it comes to his quench for your flesh. And while the cycle of rebirth is gonna be infinite for you, you quickly learn that the best way to deal with Bendy is to run and hide. You'll eventually come across these outhouses that give off some great dramatic foreshadowing of the situations when you're gonna wanna be inside of it. When Bendy's afoot and on the loose. His frequency of attacks do increase as you're still trying to push through these levels and solve various puzzles, but the best way to deal with him always seems to be to just hide and wait patiently. While the big concept of this review series is that we're only playing the game for 2 hours, the common theme from people who experienced all 5 chapters of the game is that it's relatively short, being only 5 to 6 hours of playtime for a full playthrough. Bendy and the Ink Machine gave me a great deal of amusement over my 2-hour playthrough, and while I usually say that a game with over 5 hours of playtime is worth a $20 purchase price, I'd only really recommend buying this game if it's on sale. Ideally something in the $5 to $10 range, especially since you can get the full game on iOS or Android for only $6.99. Thanks for checking out my 2-hour review of Bendy and the Ink Machine. If you're interested in seeing similar and future videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any recommendations for the next 2-hour review, drop a comment below, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Oh, Jesus.